and welcome to InnoGrid TV in association with Engerati. I'm joined now by Modesto Gabrieli, Senior Manager of Strategy and Market Analysis at Terna,
Good morning.
Italian TSO. Thank you for joining us. I believe you're a busy man. You're also on one of the ENTSO-E committees. You're the convener of the Committee on Data Models. I guess a lot of this conference is about how can European energy networks become integrated. And it sounds like you and your colleagues are doing a lot of that work on the ground to make that happen through committees such as this. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about the common grid format that you've been developing with ENTSO-E.
Yeah, thank you, Rosa, for giving me the possibility to speak about this work, which is a very useful for the TSOs and for the users. We have developed a common grid format for the data exchange of power models, which are useful for the cost-benefit assessment of the projects in the future networks. And we have developed a few years ago a table where the TSOs speak with the vendors in order to develop in parallel the format, and in this framework we have developed conformity tests in order to exchange the power models in order to set up the best format in order to gather the data from the TSOs, to merge them into a European power model, and finally to evaluate the benefit of our projects of investments in the future.
So wearing your Terna hat for a moment, how do you feel that this kind of model would benefit your day-to-day work as a TSO?
The work of the TSOs are to provide a service for the community, and it's very important to evaluate the work of the TSOs. We work in order to develop the grid, so we develop the hardware part of the system, but in parallel we work in the software level, and in this framework it is very important to exchange the data among the different parties. Our work is not only to develop the grid, but even to develop the coordination with the other parties, with the distributors, with the users, with the producers, and in the system well developed, you have the necessity to speak with a lot of parties, with a lot of users, even from the distributor point of view, not only at transmission system level.
Okay. We were talking earlier about the relationship that you, in your ENTSO-E capacity, has been having with vendors and how those sort of technology providers have been assisting. Can you tell us a bit more about how that kind of relationship has been working?
Yeah, we are not alone in order to exchange the data. We have spoken with the vendors in order to develop the tools. There is a common ground between the TSOs and the vendors in order to establish a common framework in order to set up the models, in order to evaluate the future needs, not only in terms of new facilities to be simulated inside the power models, and where there is a need to improve the models, there is a need from the vendors to follow our necessity. And in this framework, ENTSO-E has established a common framework. ENTSO-E has organized a lot of interoperability tests where during the event there is, for example, a simple power models exchanging among the parties, And after the test, ENTSO-E evaluates the quality of the data which has been exchanged in order to evaluate the quality of the work. So it is important to establish on periodical basis some events where vendors and the TSOs exchange their experience in order to set up a good format for the data.
Yeah, how much guidance are you kind of giving to vendors to make sure they're shaping their products in the way that's truly useful to TSOs?
It is a very important guidance. For example, in the future we are foreseeing a deep evolution of the system from the distribution point of view. So a lot of players will come from low voltage system. So we are working, for example, with the vendors in order to set up good power models where it is possible to evaluate in details the connection of the users to the distribution level in order to evaluate the services that could provide to the operators. In this framework, we work with the vendors in order to evaluate the necessity in the format in order to be ready with and be compliant in particular with the network codes.
There's a lot of talk about the complexity of, absorbing distributed energy, getting TSOs, DSOs to work together to bring in the prosumer. How are you starting to see light through that complexity? Are some solutions starting to take shape that will kind of get the sector where it needs to be? Yeah,
the complexity is one of the key point of our work. The role of the transmission system operator is to manage the complexity of the system, and whereas the system is evolving, the role of the TSO should follow the complexity. And in this framework we have defined the rules with the other TSOs at ENTSO-E level in order to be ready with the complexity of the grid in the future. So the European Commission has drafted the framework at legislative level, and the TSOs should be ready in order to be compliant with these new rules. It is a very impressive work.
Yeah. Thank you, Modesto, for shedding some light onto some part of it. Thank you for watching InnoGrid TV in association with Engerati. Stay tuned for other videos.